Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Rutimata. Good morning, good morning. This is the Good Morning Education Show. Such a great pleasure to be here, and we are having a great time today. It's always a great morning on the Good Morning Education Show, and we are here and we are live, and we believe that the best time to be alive is today. Is the best time to be alive is now. So if you know anyone that should be on the show, please get up, tell them. The Good Morning Education Show is here, it's back and is live. And we'll be discussing special conversations, having special conversations today, and it's just going to be a great time. Thank you to all who continually join us on the show. Want to appreciate you for your consistency. Want to thank you. We're streaming from Lagos to Nigeria to West Africa to the entire world. And if this is your first time experience on the show, do not hesitate to let us know so we can appreciate you, recognize you for joining the show, and it will always be a good one. Of course, we also want to ensure that while we are on the show, on the conversation of the day, do not hesitate to share your thoughts, your opinion, your conversation on the show. We'll be glad to acknowledge it, and also kindly ensure that you also feel free to ask questions. Whatever questions you have, we'll try as much as possible to answer that question. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. All right. So we are live. We are expecting any moment from now. We can take in conversations on the show. We spend time to look at headlines within the world and around the world of education. We spend time to deliberate about subject matters that would interest you and empower people who are professionals or educators or stakeholders within the education sphere. And today is going to be another day where we'll do that. And please, I look forward to having a great time with you on the conversation today. So we're going to start with the headlines. And we're starting with the first headline that says NLC kicks against privatization of education. NLC is Nigerian Labour Congress, and they kick. They're saying that they're kicking against privatization of education. Of course, we all know that education is an instrument of development, and most times people have the opinion that some sort. Of course, because we know that it's not everyone who might be able to accommodate the costs or the demands by privatization. Um, Definitely not everyone is the same thing or has the appetite to pay, regardless of the fees, right? The news actually captures it as the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has kicked against the privatization of education in the country. The president, Mr. Ayuba Waba, made this known on the third National Quadrennial Conference of the Union in Abuja on Wednesday. The theme of the conference is trade unions and emerging challenges in the world of work. And newsmen report that the Federal Ministry of Education had planned to concession publicly owned schools that are not doing well for better management. And I think this is where it got interesting, where the NLC was making reference to such plans as something that they are totally against. And I believe that we we've not had the last of that. But let's see how it goes. Let me welcome Dr. Murtala this morning. Dr. Murtala, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Great. And you?
I'm always excited to see you online because when I see Dr. Murtala, I see grant opportunities. I see possibility. You know. So, just to give you as feedback, you're becoming very famous by the day. Just I've had one or two calls. I didn't get that link on Dr. Motola mentioned. Please send it to me. I said, don't worry, you'll get the link today.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank
Well,
you
I'm
for the
glad that
word.
people are taking advantage of it. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So we are on our news review, and the first headline that we have is speaking about NLC. NLC kicks against privatization of education.
Interesting. So
And
we already have private schools anyway. So is it that they what do they have against them? That would be my first question. Is like, why are they so against private? Like, if the public are not working, then maybe we need to give it to other people to try and do something differently with it. But yeah, is it like just in general or for specific like forms? Like, is it like, are they
well,
like against
the
eating?
Ministry of Education made a statement in recent times of trying to hand over some
Schools?
government-owned schools that are not doing so well
I
um,
see.
to private people for better management.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what they're
They're
kicking
kicking
against.
against. I see. I
And
see.
the fact that schools in themselves, once they're privatized, there might be, I don't know the planned arrangement, but there might be that need for payment for some.
Absolutely. True.
So
True.
the fear is they don't know if that will reduce access in some measure. But then
Mm-hmm.
I believe
Yeah.
that it's something that can be worked at. It's something that it's not rocket science, honestly. It's not rocket science.
Absolutely. I agree as well because I think it can be an opportunity and not a threat in the sense that if it's properly done, they can plan for it and like really have an argument about, okay, what does this look like? Even if it has to be monetized or if there has to be payment involved, how do we ensure that those students that have been going on it for free, what does that look like? And can really be planned out because it's true if they're already not doing well, then maybe they need a second high and then because I think of like here in the US they have what they call charter school, so they are not public schools and they are not private schools in quotes. They're basically schools like are not really doing well before, or like school, or they're basically charter school are bits they will reform because either the private schools are not working or the public schools are not working in the sense that okay, these students cannot afford to go to private schools, they can afford the fee, and if they go to public schools, they will not try, they will not do well. So charter schools is like the in between where private individuals plus government and other entities come together and really provide like a very low cost or even sometimes free education system, but that is of high quality. And I'm not really sure if we have something like that in Nigeria yet. So maybe that might be another possibility or option.
Absolutely, just like you said, it's just the spirit behind the move. There's always a way, because most of the facility that government schools have, they are purpose built in nature, and there's a lot of land mass. And you can always have private developers or private educators. So when it's privatized, you can always have arrangements that will still not rule out the fact that students can still be able to benefit.
Absolutely.
That's what I think.
I
Nothing is
agree.
impossible in the world of today.
I
Nothing is
agree.
impossible.
hmm
All right, so let's quickly move to another news. Another news. Osun government shuts down 600 quack private schools, gives reasons for action. Hello?
Yeah, I'm wondering what the definition of quack is. But the thing is, like, but that is a lot of schools that is being shut down. But the question is, do they have the plan for the public school to absorb the students that are going to be basically not being be able to go to these so-called quack schools in that regard? So that would be the first question is like, or because that can create a big problem in terms of, okay, because yeah, I'm a bit in, interested in like, okay, what is the plan? Like I said, there has to be something because there's always a cause and reaction, right? Or cause and effect. And so if they're doing this, do they have a plan to absorb? What does that look like? Because and also when they say quack, like how long have they been in existence? How long have the government know that they are quack schools, and why is it now that they are not shutting them down? So I want to know the reason. Those are the questions that it raises for me.
Absolutely, spot on. Because also we must recognize that sometimes the quack schools still deliver some degree of learning experience. Even sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
they almost compete, if not favorably well, with public education, public
I
schools.
agree. Mm-hmm.
It's just because by private structure or by being privately owned, they
Mm-hmm.
might not meet up with some registration requirement. Just like you have some schools are called unregistered schools because
Mm-hmm.
they are not registered with the ministry at the private
I
Department of
see.
Private Education, and some of them may be because the facility being deployed or the qualification of staff or the yeah, some of those things make them quack.
I see.
Um, yeah, but we are talking about trying to tackle out of school children, those children
Mm-hmm.
that the 600 are catering for. The question now is what's going to happen to them because they
Exactly.
probably go back into the mass pool. They
Mm-hmm.
might not be able to be absorbed by higher grade schools. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, the public school system is even
Cannot
overstretched.
sustain them.
We don't
Absolutely.
have enough schools.
Absolutely.
We don't have enough teachers. We
I
don't have,
agree.
so really, it's almost like in between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that because I rather have them at least attending something that looks like a school than not even having access to anything. And that's why I'm like, what is the reason? Like, why now? Is it that because they're not going to give them money or something? And like you said, that there may be many different reasons. Because I rather have them have something that is going for them, whether it's quack or not, than to not have nothing. Or and so yeah. And then my question is, what is the plan? It's not enough to just shut them down and think that that's a good action. I cannot applaud that. What is the plan to now? Because there's an effect now. There'll be thousands of students who now don't have schools to go to or who have to figure out what kind of schools. And then the question is, would they even accept them? So let's say they were already in primary four or primary five or GS2, GS3. Are they going to accept those report cards from those quack schools in court, or do they have to start all over again? What is going to be the measurement or in terms so yeah, it just raises more questions for me than anything else.
Yes, and of course, sometimes you find out that we tend to forget that we must treat education as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Treat education as a tool. Very important because when
Absolutely.
we don't, there are things that you can't draw down the value right now as you speak, right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
you need to take more time to do that. So
Absolutely.
I just hope that we get it right one way or the other.
I hope so too.
Because if for example um, we have people who are not going to the uh, best of schools, then we
Mm-hmm.
should be able to figure how to upgrade or supplement and complement.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Absolutely.
Finishing
Absolutely.
schools can appear and take the burden out of them, to ensure that all these things are easily sorted out. But
Mhm.
then it's what it is.
Yeah, it's really sad because I'm like already like you were saying about out of school student. There, at least Nigeria is like the one of the biggest countries that really fuels that in terms of the statistics, and it's started going already. So I wonder the effect of what this will now add to that number, because the goal was to decrease it, and now it seems as if with these policy changes and these decisions that the government or those in charge are making, it's going to fuel the addition, not the reduction of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, so let's move on to um, another headline, and that headline simply is on JAM. JAM may conduct second 2021 UTME. That's
Interesting.
JAM.
Why are they like? Is it for candidates that did not have the chance to take the exam, or for those that have already done it, or because they failed? So, and then the question also is now, do they have the even university to take these second ones, the second round? Because already I know based on history that almost every year there are less universities than students. Than like so university there are more students that want to get into the higher education system than what the universities or higher education can take. So what is the reason behind doing this second one? Do they have a low turnout in the first one? So that will be the questions that it raises for me.
So the board
Mhm.
is looking at those who have genuine registration challenges. You
I
know,
see. Hmm.
yes, so they're looking at that. They're profiling the candidates, and they say that they have 17,758 candidates with challenges, and those people are being interviewed nationwide. So they might have to conduct another examination for those genuine cases
I
after the
see.
main after the main one takes place um, um, for 19th. You
Hmm.
know,
Okay.
so 160,670 candidates will write the 2021 mock jam exam,
Okay.
and they're looking at the possibility of using the national identity or identification number. That's the NIN. Uh, it's really,
I see. Okay.
yes. So let's go to another news, and that is Nigeria Academic Curriculum Abstract. Educationist laments. This, I'm sure, will catch your attention, definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a joke, like, and I'm like, so they're just lamenting now. They know already this before. Like, it's funny, like that it's just now that they're now lamenting. And I'm like, it's not enough to just lament. It is very funny. I'm like, lamenting does not do anything. It doesn't move the needle. It doesn't change anything. We need to go. This is 2021. Like they need to go beyond just lamenting. It's like we need to start coming up with either is a task force or people that are actively working towards changing it and turning it around, or even opening for like innovation. Like, cause it used to annoy me a lot and vex me sometimes because we see a lot of corporations and like even government pouring money into things like maybe Big Brother Africa, all of these beer shows and everything. But when it comes to like let's say spelling bee or anything that is educational or innovative like competition in that regards, nada. And I believe I refuse to believe that we don't have talented, brilliant people who can actually come up with ideas and ways that we can make things better in our education system, that we can change things for good, but they are hardly encouraged. And so I can go on and on about this. So yes, this is not news. This has been in existence since what do they call it? Forever. So I'm not even surprised, and this should not be like news like this is not news, because this is the the way things has been, and it needs to change.
But then the thing is, how can this change? How can things change if we were to look at it in the real sense?
I think
If
first and
people don't
foremost,
feel they have the power to effect change, people act helpless,
exactly.
they feel powerless,
Hmm.
they don't, and it's really how do I put it? It's
Disheartening.
really,
Yeah, I know,
yes,
because I can. Yes, I'll
because
give you an example how, like, because I think it is there's a fundamental problem with the way that our education system is being run, especially with the public schools. And the reason is why I always go back to the public schools, like they take care of 90% of the populations that need this education, right? So I remember when I was starting my NGO, my nonprofit in 2012, I tried to partner with the government and say, you know what, like this was the first thing before, because one of the things I noticed based on our research was that, like, and I was a product of the public school system. I went to a public school from GS1 to GS3 before my parents took me out of it because it got really bad, like really bad. I was even in the boarding house for that period as well, in the public school. And so, but things did not change when I after I left Nigeria, after I was almost done with my undergraduate education. This was 7 years after the fact that I was being in the public school system. And so I started my nonprofit with that passion. That was that, you know what? Because what happened during my own experience and kept happening was that we're supposed to have like 10 teachers teaching us during the S period, and we only had five. I had to pay money to my friends that went to private school after I left my private second primary school, to be begging them for their notes for us to study. And you know the way that the JSSE is set up, they don't care whether or not public school students finish their curriculum or have teacher. You have to sit for the same national examination with private school students. And at the end of the day, during my 3 years, every semester we hardly have up to 5 or 6 teachers instead of 10 that were supposed to teach us those core curriculum. And we were on our own. We didn't even have a school library. So if you can afford the textbook, then it's even worse for you. And so when I started my nonprofit, that was the one of the goals that we had. It was like we wanted to fill that gap. That what if we hire like really brilliant either undergraduate student or graduate student or recent graduate who are very good at those subject areas that schools don't have teachers in, and they fill the role. So instead of students roaming around during that class period when they don't have those teachers, until the government can hire them or find someone, let them come in, teach, and they shut us down. Literally, they said no, they were trying to take their job. I'm like, I don't care who takes the credit. We just want to help and fill the gap. So at the end of the day, we had to rethink the NGO, and that's how we create an after-school system. That if the school will not let us come in, then we are going to create something that the student can come to us after their normal 8 to 2 p.m. in school to have access to these things as well. And so it upsets me a lot when I think about it. And I think things have even gotten worse in the past like 10 years now, to think about it. And it's just really annoying that they are not open to change. There's so many things can be done. I've written so many curriculums about education and things like that. And but to even pitch it to the government or to the people involved or the leadership is a problem. It takes months to get even a conversation in. Then after a month and month of even getting it in, they will shut you down and say sorry, we are not interested, or no, that's not how we do things, and or you're trying to make us look back. I'm like, no, I don't really care about who looks good or bad. It's about the children. It's about the system. It's about making things better for the student that have to go through this, but no such thing. So I don't know if anything has changed since my own experience then, but I think they have not, honestly. So it's, if they're not willing to change, if they're not open to change, then nothing is going to change.
they're not willing to change, if they're not open to change, then nothing truly is going to change. That's a powerful summation by Dr. Omotola. Um, welcome, Safety Chick. Safety Chick, good morning. Thank you for joining the show.
Good morning, Mr. Rotimi. Good morning, Dr. Motala. And as you were just speaking
Mhm.
right now, the part that hits me is when you said, they said you want to make them look bad. And I think that is the wrong perspective. Why is your focus going to the fact that you would look bad? If you were doing well, nobody would make you look bad. But how about you focus on the good that can come out of it? You can still credit it to the government and say, oh yes, some parts were not working out right, but we worked with so and so person, and now things it can always be, if it is the glory that you want, you can always adapt what's going on. There's a way you can still get some credit, because I mean, if you don't work with the individual, nothing would happen. So you means working with the individual would make it work. So the focus shouldn't be on looking bad. It should be about doing something good that is going to benefit the children, who are the primary audience, target audience. And of course, the perception is, it's going to boost perception of education in our country. So, gosh, I really felt somehow when you mentioned that. I really wish the focus would be on the children and on advancing education, as opposed to people feeling slighted.
Absolutely. Yes. I was it was not even fun because it just made me upset. I almost, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I even told them, like, we don't care who takes the credit. You don't have to talk. Like, if there's a way that you can frame it, come up with like a news, whatever, to say that, oh, the government is now partnering with NGOs in the education sector. We know that it takes a village to help. Like, there are so many ways they could have twisted it to
Exactly.
make them look good, but they were not even interested in exploring that. All they saw was like, we were a threat, we're a threat, we're a threat.
Well, it's because a lot of things have been politicized. The truth of the matter is, a lot of people, they know what to do. Some of them are open to doing things, but the bigger fear is, do we want to do something that we cannot control the agenda or the narrative? You're coming to them as someone wants to develop, but at the base of that interest at developing the sector, you might spring up surprises. They've actually also had cases where people have, you know, taken endorsements or used the leverage of partnership, public-private partnership, to do things that are not professional at the end of the day. But like Safety Chick said, if we really act as professionals, if we treat this as a functional thing, I think all you need to do is just to work with the checklist, ensure supervision, and then you have your memorandum of understanding in such a way where people,
Exactly.
if they breach protocols, you can shut them down. And because it's government, it's even easier to uh, it's easier to deal with someone. I don't know if I answer my point.
Yeah.
Maybe someone might be seeking for private funding without their knowledge. But you see, it still boils down to having the heart for what you need to do, be willing to do it, and be open to work with other people doing it. I've had my fair experiences. I was invited to a state. I traveled all the way from Lagos to a particular state to have a meeting on the proposal that I sent. I was excited about it. It wasn't convenient. Eventually, after getting to the place, trying to get there in good time, I left Lagos very, very early. I got there eventually, risked my life. All the next hour, it was a funny story. I think I need to be sharing some of these stories. Um, and then I had to wait till late afternoon. And I told them, look, I'm not based in your state. I need to go back to Lagos. So eventually I met with the team there, and the question they asked was funny. So it was more like so uh, we didn't make provision for us. What's for us? I said, oh yes, this and this and this, we could do this, we could do this. They said no, other people have done this before, this and that, this magnitude of what I want to do. Um, what's the figure that will come to them? And I said, you guys are not even giving me funding. It's not that I'm asking for money. I'm trying to help you guys out. And you're trying to indirectly charge me to help your state out. It's meant to be the other way
Mm.
around. I'm meant to charge you, but now I'm doing it for free. You know what? That's how my meeting or my trip to a state somewhere in the southwest, over 5 hours journey, right? That's how it ended. You know, you can imagine that kind of thing. And people
Wow.
tend to shut down and lose inspiration when things like that happen. What if that was, you didn't, I chartered a vehicle to go because I didn't want to drive my car. You know, the driver had to wait because I didn't want to update myself to go into garage and all those things and all. But guess what? I went all the way for a meeting that didn't last up to 15 minutes after being kept for hours to find out the question was, what do you have for us? So
Hmm.
those things can be demoralizing. In fact, sometimes you just bone and say, you know what, I don't even want to do anything. So, well, it is what it is. You know, it is what it is. So, the last headline before we move to the conversation of the day: why we did not see a session, or sorry, why we did not lose a session during COVID-19 by UNNVC. VC. Ugochi, do you want to analyze that?
Okay, so I don't have the full details. Does that mean that classes still went on even while COVID was going on? They didn't have the delay and lag that other schools did? Because if that is the case, then they did great, considering that almost there were so many other schools that didn't do anything. But if this headline is referring to something else, then I don't know. So are they referring to the fact that during COVID they were still on track? They didn't students were gainfully occupied with their classes and all that. Is that what they mean?
Yes, yes. They were saying that they were able to increase their ICT and train their staff quickly to adopt to virtual classes and virtual combining virtual classes and classroom contact, and that they were able to still continue their countless academic activities, meetings, and then even doing all of their stuff as well. So yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, I think that's a really good one, considering that a lot of people froze, during that period, so it's a good thing that they were able to adapt. That's another thing. Many people are not fluid. When change happens, it takes them a really long time to, move and all that. And in this current today's business environment, you've got to be fluid. Of course, we're not asking you to be hasty, but but you've got to be fluid. You don't just stay stagnant. So I think that that's a really good one that they did. Yes, I think it's a really good one.
Yeah, they even said that they also produced their own sanitizer, a contactless digital machine that perform tripartite function of hand sanitizing, washing, and
All this
temperature.
drama, all this drama, all this drama. You know that metal contraption that people will press a pedal and then it will bring out. But the truth is well, let's not bust their bubble. They did not use the session, but not that they were totally in school either.
Mhm.
And we heard that followed the news back then. Pretty much no school was in session, online and offline, especially tertiary institution. I think if there's any aspect of the value chain within the school system, it was more of the primary and the secondary schools, especially the secondary schools, that did a lot in terms of engagement, continuous engagement during the pandemic. I'm sure, Gucci, you remember we treated some conversations that time, and it was trending when universities, even ASU,
Yeah.
yeah, said that there's no way they can remember
Yes. Yes.
that there was
That's
no way
why I was
there's
surprised, and I was asking that is
and
it that they meant
also
that
there was
classes went
strikes
on
as well.
during the
So there was
pandemic?
also strikes. So I'm really surprised about their hidden session that took place without, it says
So it's hidden session.
Oh.
it's true that if there was strike and then like the schools also came out, universities came out to say that no, there's no way. That people were even saying that how can higher institution be having difficulty in transitioning online? It shouldn't be. And they had deeper pockets than some schools, secondary school, blah blah blah. you know. So it's something that is all over the internet. But then, of course, maybe through it, all, they're saying they didn't lose a session, probably because they rushed their work. Like they said, they have those tripartite devices. And then, because if you say we upgraded our information and communication technology, as in that's ICT infrastructure, where upgrade as to what? Then you acquired necessary software license. Yes, you trained your staff. Then what happened? You know. Anyways, let's not. Reposition NYC, don't scrap it. We were urges worry. So Dr. Motola, what's your take on the push for scrapping NYC?
I think there is value in NYC. Well, and I agree that maybe it needs to be repositioned, not totally scrapped, as well. Because I know some of the things that some of the people mentioned was that because sometimes, like, it at least takes over 100,000 student that graduate and may not necessarily find a job immediately, and that keeps them busy for at least a year. And during that period, some of them develop their entrepreneurship skills and start becoming self-employed and things like that. So I think there's still value for it. And then so I agree that it shouldn't just be scrapped for the sake of scrap because of insecurity. I think that was one of the major things they were mentioning as why they should scrape it. But they can reposition it, they can rethink it instead of saying that okay, the purpose is to send people to the state or the region they don't know. Maybe because of the insecurity issue, keep them within the state that they're already in, that they're familiar with, to continue to build on the foundation of maybe their volunteerism and things like that that they've done. But I don't think like totally scrapping it is the way to go, because the truth again is the question is again, what is the plan to absorb these students? What is the already there's a lot of high increase in unemployment rate. Now if we have this extra 100,000 like in the next like 2 to 3 years to the current unemployment rate, what does that do? Do they have what is the plan? What is the alternative? What is like I'm always asking, what is the plan behind the plan to scrap this? And so that'll be my own thought right now.
Well, the argument for scrapping, the argument against NYC is that um, there's a lot of insecurity in the land. And before it became this bad, you've always had the issue of core members, going to locations and they don't return safely. Parents have had to bury their kids just because they send them to service. The insurance on them, not it at all. Some people don't even make it through the orientation camp. We've had issues where because there are some other factors that should be a levy that are no longer there. So you have to go to some for those who are posted to far off locations. Some states don't have functional airports or airports at all. So you are subject to the road. You are there for a year. Some states and some rural areas that they post the core members to have poor health facility, so you can't afford to even fall ill because the
Those persons.
primary healthcare center, so many factors, and eventually it's not safe if you go to serve, you come back and you're sure of a job. Some people are worse off because of the skill gap, the learning loss. A year after university, you pretty much don't know anything again, because even in university, it's not as if it was experiential learning. It was conditional learning. You had to pass. That's why you learned. So, and then most of the funding that government is saying there's no fund, there's no fund. So it's like they're just mere national slaves, not national service. So it's not empowering enough, and so it's like the purpose of NYC is no longer being experienced. And you know what? Most times it's the officials who are living the life, who are having the largesse, because as it is with always government institutions, is the people who are the drivers of the institutions that feed off fat as opposed to the function of the institutions. So that's been the cry of it. And that, look, the advent of social media, advent of internet has taken care of part of the clause for NYC, which is you want people to integrate. It's the national orientation project. So you want people from Kaduna to be able to meet with people in Lagos. And social media is doing that already, and they're not losing their lives on social media, although some social media platforms are being banned. So it's as good as let me keep my mouth shut. All right. Hello?
Yeah, for me, yes, I can see why, and that's what I'm saying, that it needs to be reconsidered. Like, if they're not going to scrap it totally, then I think they should remove that condition of you have to go to another father's land that you don't know, based on all of those things that you listed. So is there a way to like look at what other nations have done? I know, like in Israel, for them, there's students after they graduate have to go into the military for like I think it's more than a year or something. And in Singapore they have something like that too. In the US, I know they have various ones. They have like City Year, American Cup, and it's not based on location or you have to go to another state or something. It can even be within your state just to get to know it deeper or to really build on upon what you're already doing in the community. And so I think there are different models that they can explore and look at across different countries to say, okay, how can we reposition NYC beyond, like maybe before now, before this century, it serves the purpose with the way things are running. And I always tell people, a non-examining life is not worth living. So the same thing for any project or business or whatever, or even government entity. So if they've not examined or evaluated NYC for a long time in terms of, okay, what is the, are we really fulfilling the purpose of it? Is there more harm than good that is being done? Then it needs to be revamped or stopped, like you said in that regard. So, but I still think there is still some good, but it just have to change, like change with the times. Like you said, technology have made things better now. You can talk to someone across different places, learn from them, and all of those kind of things. And so I still think there's value for it, but it just have to change. And maybe it doesn't have to be compulsory again. It can now be something that is um optional. It doesn't mean it's like, oh, you have to go through it. If you don't go through it, then you cannot get a certain job or things like that. So that may be some of the things or shift that needs to happen as we go forward.
All right. Richie, do you want to add something to that? Okay, so let's move on to the conversation of the day. Well, we're going to do something different this morning. I think that let's first take the education grant for the day, and then we'll come back to the topic for the day so that we run through without breaking. So, Dr. Motola, over to you, the education grant for the day.
Okay, thank you. So the education grant for today is the Just Cut Charitable Trust. And this is a rolling grant, meaning that you don't have a deadline. You can apply at any time. And I always tell people, just because the site is rolling, which means that, okay, you can apply anytime. They take applications. That doesn't mean you should wait till December or November to apply. Still start getting your application in now, because if the funding runs out for the rest of this year, then until next year, you can apply again. So rolling means you can apply anytime. It's not due next month or in August or something, but at least you have enough time to like give yourself to do it, but still take it actively. Also, the field of work. So what can you use the funding for? Vocational and trade education, education for like kindergarten through 12, which means like from primary school to secondary school level. You can use it for reproductive education, environmental education to educate students or the community on that. You can also use it for community health education. You can use it for early learning or preschool, so that the pre kindergarten learning, higher education, technology access, and digital literacy, adult education as well. And then for who can apply, so the ones that we've been sharing before has been both individuals and organizations. But for the one for today is just NGO. But there's a clause to this. So NGOs can partner with schools And let's say you're an NGO functioning in a specific state and you are interested in education system, you can always partner with like school system, whether private or public, and do one of these programming with them. And so there's a lot of partnership opportunities. So it's not like just because schools cannot apply directly, they cannot benefit from it. If they can create a partnership with an NGO, they can benefit from these grants as well. And so this funding can be used for like we said, educational outreach project, program, or capital project. And then the funding priorities for this organization is like they want to make grants that will make a difference, and the preference will be given to charities or projects who are already having difficulty getting started. And the truth of the matter is, in most African countries, Nigeria included, that is the case. A lot of people are not donating or giving money, and there's not a lot of like grant opportunities that all the thousands of NGOs that we have access to. So you NGOs in Nigeria focusing on education, you're prime for these. They prioritize you more than any other organizations, and then so they're willing to fund capital projects for equipment, for material, and yes, and they give to it's not just for Nigeria. So if you're not in Nigeria, because I know this is a wide audience that listen to this, you can also apply across the world. So it's not limited just to Nigeria alone. And then the project that will be considered can benefit all age and background. You may use it to provide formal education, to teach vocational skills, to enhance the possibility of employment, to enhance computer skills, health awareness, or distant learning, and then information to help you apply. They make grant again towards project cost. They prefer capital rather than running cost. And then they usually give for like newcomers. So if this is your first time applying to this grant, between 2,000 euros to 10,000 euros. But there is, in some exceptional cases, they can give up to 20,000 euros to help support the work that you do for it as well. So that is the grant for the day.
Fantastic. So Ugochi said, wow, I know my Ugochi. She's going to get busy now.
I love it.
She's a grant enthusiast, or she's a grant junkie. So
no, I wouldn't say that, because it's not all of them that are relevant to what I do.
All right, so let's have it. There you have the website, www.jeffcottcharitable.trust.org.uk. And please make sure you avail yourself the opportunity for this, the education grant for the day, powered by the Good Morning Education Show. And we are excited to always bring value to you every time. So let's go over to the conversation of the day. Plan B for teachers. Plan B for teachers. I'm going to start with Ugochi, the safety chief. Plan B for teachers. Let's talk about Plan B. What is Plan B? What is Plan B for teachers?
So I think we should start with you, Mr. Ritimi. What is Plan B for teachers? Set the tone of the conversation so we know what angle we are talking about Plan B from.
I want to hear your own thoughts, even though I'm going to set the tone. Well, actually, Plan B. Okay, let me help you out. Plan B for teachers, basically, we're looking at this conversation today, and a lot has been in the air about Plan B. Plan B being that the consciousness of the economic realities, the industrial realities, has really caused people to start thinking of survival mode, significant mode. So many businesses are feeling the burden of the challenges from the pandemic to their national development. And so everybody's looking for something alternative to their mainstay, alternative to their present geographical location. The thought of relocation has really been in the air. Of course, owing especially to a place like Nigeria, to the challenges in the economy and the leadership and kind of quality of governance that people are experiencing. It's almost getting to look like the way you pick a master's over just having a BSc program. So it's almost like saying that your place of birth, your country of birth, can naturally not be the best place for you to thrive. And that's where the plan B concept comes out. But I believe for teachers, teachers are not left out. Number one reason, because teachers are human beings. Number two, the sector and the industry and the profession of teaching has always been a profession where people have always been looking for alternatives. It's because a lot of times the reward is not far off as that rewarding, especially for the majority. So what's plan B? We're talking about what's the option plan. What are the options available for betterment, for growth? What are the options for soliciting quality of life here or elsewhere? That's really what the conversation is about. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so two things came to mind as you were speaking. So I know that when people talk about plan B like this, so the focus might be relocation, right? But you see, with relocation, there might also be some challenges because for some people, maybe they have their roots really strong here, and it might be tough uprooting and going somewhere else. For some others, they desire to go, but the funding to make it happen is not even possible. So that also brings a challenge. So I'll just say to teachers that when you are thinking of plan B, don't only think in terms of physically moving. Think of how to export your services so that if for any reason you can still stay here, maintain your roots, but your services, your products are being used across several countries, across several locations. So that way you're still able to earn in foreign currency, that can hedge whatever is happening to our own currency, so that way you're not under any pressure to, raise necessary money to move and all those things. So in the meantime, do an assessment of your current skills and abilities. What do you have that can be needed by someone else in another location, another state, another country, another continent? How can you package it in such a way that it is really beneficial? It is because, again, people would always gravitate towards value. And you can now say you have value, but then you are not packaging and putting it out where people will accept you the way they are. No, my dear, people will not accept you the way you are. The world is increasingly intentional. People are packaging so that it gets the necessary reach, and it is attractive to your potential customers across different country lines. So you must be intentional about packaging yourself, your brand, your product, and your services such that you can be here and you are maybe teaching Igbo language, for example, if that is what is of interest to you, to children of Igbo descent in China whose parents want them not to lose the home touch. You see, so again, the reason I use Igbo as an example is somebody might think, maybe it's maths and English, or it's phonetics or what. Just to let you know that anything can actually be packaged. All you just need to do is to find a need. Where is the gap? What is the need? And then you begin to do something about it, so that you are not under any pressure to go like move physically. If for some reason you have your plans in place to move physically and it works, it's a personal decision. I'm not going to tell you go or don't go, but all I'm going to say is just ensure that whether you go or not, you have products and services that can be used across different locations, so that you are still able to protect yourself against any economic crisis and all that.
Okay, Dr. Motola, over to you.
Yes.
We're hearing plan B. What's wrong with plan A? Was there a plan A? Oh, let's hear.
Yes, like they always say, like when growing up, they used to say that, oh, teachers' reward are in heaven, teachers' reward are in heaven. And I think that, like that, I don't think, yes, it's wonderful that yes, their reward is in heaven, but they need to still experience some reward while on earth as well. So I'll say that's one of the things that is wrong with plan A. And thank you, Gochi, like saying that they should go borderless in their thinking, in the way that they operate, in the way that they can export their services. I know, like here in the US, they have so many and I'm sure even across Nigeria and other African states, there's a need for these online learning, tutoring, and things like that. That they can definitely, like, with just a little bit of technical stuff, they can get themselves and really export their services anywhere in the world. And one of those platforms that here in the US that is very popular for teachers, and it doesn't matter whether or not, like, what's your degree. So far, you have a bachelor's degree in whatever major, and you can speak in English very well. Then it's called VIP Kids, and like they give up to like $25 an hour or for per 45 minutes to teach students in China how to speak in English. Like, and so those ones are intentional. And then even beyond just that one, like there are a lot of like like I know my husband where he was doing his graduate study, he has like he used to like tutor on like sites like Preply and many other ones like that he charges like up to like $100 an hour depending on the subject matter, and he teaches students from all over the world, like, and then he picks his own time and he helps them with those kind of things. So there's so many opportunities now, especially with the way the world is going digital and with what has happened through the pandemic. So I think it's high time that the teachers start like innovating and really not just being stuck to like, oh, I'm just a regular teacher that teaches from 9 to 5 or whatever that looks like, or 8 to 2, and then that's all. Like there's so much they can do to increase their income, to increase their influence, to increase their impact. Then another thing I would say for plan B will also mean that also like being open to like learning, training, workshops, going for immersion experience to actually learn new ways of teaching, better ways of like working with the student, better ways of helping the student learn. One of the headline news that we treated today was about how learning has become just rote memorization and things are abstract. So it's not just enough to blame the government and say, well, the government is not giving us what we need. It's time for, because if a teacher is exceptional and they're able to like create something like game changing, then before you know it, things they will catch up, like they will become news, they will start trending, and then that might even force the government or all of those people in policy to change things and make things better if they see that that works. But if they are just so like reactive instead of proactive, then nothing is going to change. And so that will be my thought.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting that people also need to understand that the world did not just start experiencing this exodus from one location to the other. If you follow history properly, if you're a student of history, you will realize that it's always been like that. Um, it's just unfortunate that we observe and we copy. We observe and we follow suit. We do not learn, we do not plan, and we do not get the best of even good moves. And I like the way Safety Chica said some few things, but I also want people to understand when we talk about plan B, we must think seasons. Seasons are natural, successful indices for you to understand how relevant you can make your life become, regardless of the location that you find yourselves. If we look at the animals, you notice that animals, for example, when it's getting to winter season, just before winter, at the end of summer or at the beginning of autumn, you begin to see some animals migrate. And the reason for that is because of course, the basis on that rung of ladder is survival. But then when you look at it to a large extent, it's the survival, there's significance, there's a lot of things that happens. And so when we also begin to do so many things, we are not trying to just get to feel better or get to run off from something. Like Ugochi knows, we used to say this on the show for a long time. It's a popular statement when you say, "He who fights and run um, will live to fight another day." That's what most
Fight
people normally
another
say.
day.
But I normally add something to it. I used to add
Win.
and win. Oh, it doesn't make sense. How long do we fight? Um, how long should we run? We must learn to get to that point where seasons are, for example, teachers. A lot of teachers have their profession and their job cut out in seasons, and they can leverage on that. Plan B can start with you being able to master the seasons of your life, master the seasons within your industry, master the seasons at in the lives of the clients or the lives of the leverage spectrum that you want to have. Because sometimes you might not have all the answers, but the seasons present to you certain things that need to happen. Seasons in certain people's life, seasons in your own life. And I love the way Ugochi also mentioned this, that, and we need to gravitate towards data. So, for example, say some people have strong roots here, which is also debatable. Strong roots meaning that is, by my thinking, I might be wrong. It means that, for example, um, if you have, if you are married and you have children, that's a very strong tie. If you're married, you don't have children, it's a strong tie, but not as strong as one who's married and has children. If you are dating and you have boyfriend, get out. You don't have strong tie. If you are very single, you don't have strong tie. So I'm just saying, I hope that's what you meant by who are not fully rooted.
Sarah,
Or
to me, that anybody can take whatever understanding they can take
no, no, no,
from
no,
that
I'm not accusing you
statement.
now. I'm just saying, I'm just using this as illustration. So by default, to go to some people are more equal than the others. So anyway, if that has ears, let him hear what the spirit is saying.
Yeah,
So I
and then
don't know.
another thing.
You guys, we really short out
Can I
our
say one
time.
last thing?
Yeah.
Another thing that he brought up for me was like even another plan B can be even rethinking the way that the like the teaching schedule is run. So it's not every teacher that I think must be there from 8 to 2 every day of the week or something. Because like they teach in, and so that might be another conversation. Like, okay, right now, based on the pay or the compensation that they are earning, maybe it's high time to start thinking like, can we work in schedules? Like, okay, some people will do morning shift or afternoon shift or evening shift or something like that. So that might be another thing to think about. Like, what if we create like different level of like because like you're right, like think about it, like these out of school children, if the country or the the education system or the teachers really want to get involved in that, there's so many possibilities. Let's say the parent keeps saying that, well, I need them to help me to arc between morning and afternoon. But what if they have afternoon sessions for those kind of people or evening sessions for those kind of students, and make that into something that, okay, some teachers can work in the morning, in the afternoon. But I know it's going to take a while, and I'm not even sure they're ready for this. The government or even the system is ready for that. But those are some of the possibility thinking that I think should not just be squashed and say, oh, we're not even going to consider it or think about it. But you both are absolutely right. There's so many possibilities for teachers and what they can do as plan B.
All right, Gucci, you want to say your last shot?
Well, still, you, the teacher, you've got to do your own personal assessment and determine what is good for you. Are you planning towards a physical relocation, but you don't have the funds now? How about you relocate your product and your services so that you begin to make some money in foreign currency and begin to save towards that? And then if you feel that physically relocating is not for you because like people would say, bad things can happen anywhere, that's also fine. You've just got to ensure that you are still hedging yourself against financial crisis, by earning in another currency, by exposing your product and your services to other clients. So now I'm speaking specifically to educators. Even school owners can even maybe create courses or administrators can create courses that can help other people, maybe in other African countries or in other continents, to produce certain results. So again, it's all about you. What gap have you seen in the system? What can your talent and your skill do about it? If it can, please do something. You just never know the opportunities that are waiting for you when you begin to think that way.
Yeah, I think that to bring this to a close, people should recognize that as educators, we are also part of the economy, and we need to start engaging and tolerating that appetite to be able to be contributors to the national economy. And that's really the beginning of Plan B, where you are not just seeing yourself as earners in terms of receiving, but as people who are productive in terms of producing. So while you earn more from the angle of thinking that you want to take a portion or you want to increase your contribution to the nation's economy. Number two, I think the basis of line in terms of your plan B should be how you are able to see the possibility of earning within more amongst more, which means that personal income might need to shift for collective income. That's the best way for you, regardless of your reality, to begin to thrive. Imagine something I can earn because I'm being a part of Ugochi and I'm being a part of Dr. Motola. That provides us a higher level of security, a consistent level of income, and then it's supplementary to whatever it is that you can earn as an individual. That's how it's always been. And then you grow continuously. And if there's opportunity for you to relocate physically, fine. Relocate mentally, fine. Don't relocate spiritually if it's not your time yet. But what we need you to do is to ensure that that your plan B concept is not because you are running away. Your plan B concept should be your plan becoming. I call plan B. That B is called becoming. It's not as opposed to how people see it as jackpot in the sense that I am running away, I am leaving, I am, it might be a good step, but the wrong reasoning will not produce the best results. So we must be able to look at plan B as plan becoming. Look at Ugochi's quest to go for master's special program and all that. That's a plan becoming. It's not just that, oh, she's relocating or she's not, or she's leaving the country for something. It's tied to becoming. And that's how it is, because that's what sustains growth. It becomes a seed as opposed to a destination. So that's my counsel for teachers out there. And I hope that they learn from this, glean from this, and put it to use and practice. Remember our grant for the day, and make sure that you don't just look at these things, you take advantage of these things. For those of you who will be watching the replay, thank you for always being a part of the show. And as we bring the show to a close, we hope that your plan B works out as planned. Ladies, there's a way we end the show. I'm going to give you the privilege to do that today. And Ugochi, our president, is in town, or is coming to town.
Our president.
I rest my case. Over to you guys.
Mr. Rotimi, see you on WhatsApp. We must continue this conversation. Okay, it's always a great day
on the Good
Morning Education Show.
Bye-bye.
Good day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.